It's good to see you, buddy. Good morning.
Morning. How are y'all?
Doing good. You look different than when I saw you last. Did you have some shades on?
They all saw it in the chat.
Okay.
They asked when you were going to do your porn shoot. Was
That-
it directly after
coming
the
from
show?
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't realize I was still wearing that.
That's right. It's been a hell of a night.
Exactly.
Done.
Yeah.
Y'all are porn waiting to happen.
Dylan Cruz's ass.
With our powers combined.
247
All
Sports.
right.
I'm sure they appreciate
St. Joseph Academy skirt checks.
it. On your knees.
Shea, Tackett Curtis. LSU felt like they've been looking on the outside in here for a lot of his recruitment, but this weekend seems like they made up a lot of ground. Where do they stand?
Yeah, I mean, this is, one of the top players in Louisiana, but the country. I mean, I think he's number 6 or 5 linebacker, kind of consensus across the ranking services. So highly thought of. I mean, he's got 50-something college offers, but it became clear early on that LSU just wasn't a player. I mean, they offered him, I think, in the summer of 2021, so a year ago, but even then didn't make any headway. And out-of-state teams from the start, whether it was Ohio State or Wisconsin, Southern Cal, coast to coast, he was making visits to. He's now set to make official visits. He's got 3 of them in the books: Wisconsin, Ohio State, and USC. But LSU was just never a factor, and it became kind of public. And I don't think Jess Curtis or Manny would shy away from that. But it kind of was what it was, and everyone sort of wrote off publicly that Tackett was going to leave the state. And the new staff, when they got hired, I think noticed that Brian Kelly and Brian Polian had offered Tackett while they were at Notre Dame, so obviously they knew who he was. And I think they got down here and said, all right, here's the top players in the state. Let's reach out. And I think probably when they got to Tackett, someone was like, you ain't got a shot. Like, here's what's going on. And it was sort of, well, we need to get up there to Manny High and figure this out. And that's what Jess Curtis said, the head coach there, was kind of their MO, starting back in January. And then when coaches could go on the road for the spring evaluation period, they went up there and kind of, as Jess said, the walls come down and the dialogue between LSU and Manny's there. And look, beyond Tackett in this class, I mean, they've got D1 guys coming through there. Certainly a lot of kids that have played at different spots in college in the state. But next year, they've got, one of the top 50 prospects in the country. So it's one of those things where you don't want any school in Louisiana to be sort of LSU's persona non grata there. It almost doesn't make sense. So even beyond getting a great linebacker like Tackett to campus, I think the big win is that, Manny High is in good graces and vice versa with LSU again, which is a talented high school football program with, a lot of kids that come through there that end up playing college ball. So you don't want to sort of have any sort of divide between those two. And I think the new staff sort of put an end to that.
The coach is his uncle, right? Jess is his uncle.
Yes. So the people who came down this past weekend would have been Jess, Tackett, Tackett's dad, who would be Jess's brother, their father, so Tackett's grandfather, and I think Tackett's
Is
brother.
this JT?
I don't know.
Is it John Curtis? I mean, is it?
I don't know. There's probably a lot of Curtis. I mean, it could be like John Curtis's brother who's in there.
Right.
But no, I don't know if it was JT.
How many field passes are they going to want? Nice.
Give him as many as
and
they
his
need.
brother. But I think Jess was saying, like, Jess's daughter went to LSU. One of Tackett's siblings is either at
his
LSU right
brother
now or went to
is.
LSU. So, it's not like
Right.
no LSU was allowed. It was just sort of like the coaching staff and our school kind of weren't on the same page, and now they are.
5-star Jaden Wayne has his official set to LSU. He's out of Tacoma, Washington, and we've seen LSU kind of spread their arms here and go national. Wayne is one of the top edge rushers in this cycle. Where do they stand with him?
Yeah, and in a good spot. I mean, they're in the top group. They'd already gotten him down for a visit in April, an unofficial visit, and now he's got them, June 10th. He'll be down here for an official visit. He's coming off of one to Georgia. Miami and Oregon are in the mix, and then Bama. So kind of LSU's put themselves in that final 5, which for a kid, like you said, from Tacoma, Washington, who's a top, 3 edge rusher in the country, that's a big deal. And I think you'll see with this class how it plays out. They don't have any D linemen committed right now, but they're going to have some committed, and I think they'll have a few by the end of the cycle. But I think it'll be heavy on out-of-state guys. And Jamar Cain, Wayne would be one example, but there's a lot of guys. LSU's D-line coach came from OU, and when you're at OU, you recruited at a high level, but you aren't banking on Oklahoma kids from Kansas to go there. You're having to go all over the country and recruit. And I think Cain's been able to kind of say, hey, look, I was at OU offering all these type of kids for 23 this cycle. When I get to LSU, we take the same dudes here that you would take if you're Oklahoma's D-line coach. So I think that helped them out in a way to where, I've said this before. Joe Sloan came from La Tech. He ain't recruiting the same quarterbacks now that he was recruiting at La Tech. Sure. Jamar Cain is recruiting the same D lineman that he was recruiting at Oklahoma. So a lot of these kids in this class that are being recruited by LSU on the D line have known Cain for a couple of years now, and now kind of are seeing him from the LSU side. And June is a big stretch, not just for Wayne, but I would bet there'll be 7, 8, that range number of D linemen from outside the state who take official visits and come in and spend time on campus. So in the next month, I bet we see a lot of, whether it's commitments or at least kids coming to campus and then you feeling good or hearing out there that, look, LSU's going to end up getting this kid.
Cordell Music asks inside of the chat, any word on Brad Davis making up ground on Zalance Hurd or looking into Zalance Hurd, the 4-star offensive tackle from Neville? They're high on the list.
Yeah, I think that I guess if they made up ground, sure, because they offered recently, but it was one of those things that's been odd that every school in the country hasn't gone in there and offered, which I think was kind of anticipated early on. He played at Bastrop and he was a D lineman, but he moved over to Neville and they said, hey, look, you've got, as anybody knows, you want to make some money one day in the NFL, play some offensive tackle. And he made the move over to offensive tackle, and he started on one side and Will Campbell started on the other, and they were pretty good. And A.J. Allen, their running back, ran for a lot of yards every game. And Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, a number of schools are involved there. I like where LSU stands. I know that being LSU, just getting Campbell, the new staff will make those inroads at Neville and get to know Hurd more. But I think Davis being retained as a Baton Rouge guy, native, he was already on the staff. He knows who the kid is. I think that's big. I think they'll, look, you look at Zalance Hurd at Neville, you look at Tyree Adams at St. Aug, Caden Jones at De La Salle. There's a few kids in state that play offensive line that Brad Davis is on that they could wind up with. So I think this will be another one of those classes where you see, like last year you had Campbell and Emory Jones and Bordelon and Fitzgerald West. I think you'll get three or four, maybe less, O-linemen from here in Louisiana, and then you add that one or two from outside the state of kind of these big names that you're going after and kind of battling other, Georgia, Bama, whoever it is for them.
North Louisiana has always been a topic of conversation around recruiting with LSU. Trey Holly committed last week, the state's top running back.
Is that where Farmerville is?
I guess so.
Union?
Is that right?
I don't know. I'm for real. No, I don't know why I thought it was in like central Louisiana.
No, it's above Alexandria, right?
Well, I mean, if you go
y'all
above,
are from here.
If
y'all
you go above Alexandria, you're lost, brother.
No, he's from up in that area. He's from up in Monroe.
I'm just going to Google it while we talk
I'm
about it.
Googling it over
Union
here.
Parish.
Union Parish. The U.
Around Monroe. Tallulah.
The U.
Right next to Walmart, Stewie, in the Union Museum of History and Art.
You checking that?
Yeah.
I'm checking. I'm not trusting any of y'all. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. North of Monroe, north of
Thank
Western.
you.
You know what?
Thank you.
You learn things every
Thank you.
day, and that's why I wake
Especially
up, is just
on
to
the
get more
Culotta show.
educated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't
Appreciate
do
it.
anything. I Googled it.
That's
Yep,
true.
Farmerville, North Louisiana.
Why y'all
All
didn't
right.
do anything? I Googled it.
So is that more on Holly, or are they putting? Are they? I hate to say repairing the relationships. They're not in a bad spot up there, but I mean,
I don't. Is there some big rhetoric that North Louisiana's like
loaded.
they got no, well, not that, but like who's gone? What big name from North? Like Hootie Jones? Like I'm trying to think of.
I guess Cam Robinson would be.
Well,
the
yeah,
last.
but I mean that was a while back. I mean we're talking a couple coaching staffs ago at this point.
I mean, wasn't Hootie in the same
Terrace
class as
Marshall
Yeah.
Cam? Yeah,
went to
Terrace
LSU.
Marshall.
I'm trying to think of the really
right, no
big
doubt.
names that have
I mean,
come.
Greedy Williams.
Greedy Williams,
Yeah.
Tre'Davious.
No doubt. Yeah, you're right. So
Yeah.
I guess it's been a
I don't think
old narrative.
North Louisiana is probably not as heavy on talent as when New Orleans or Baton Rouge or Lafayette or Lake Charles was are putting guys out. So I think we focus on probably over the past decade, the guys that have been big up there, if they've missed on them, it's become a bigger deal than it might be, elsewhere. So I don't know. I think Holly attributed a lot to just wanting to stay in Louisiana, play for the home state, have his family come down and see him. Frank Wilson, made some good inroads there. And look, we know Frank's MO. He's going to we've seen it over all the years, whether it was the Kenny Hilliard or Mike Ford, whoever it would have been, Jeremy Hills. Louisiana's got running back talent.
Yeah, for sure.
Frank Wilson, name me an out-of-state back that he went on that, he had Darrell Williams and Fournette and Geis and Clyde. There's guys to find here. So I think that when he got on board, he circled Holly and they went and got him.
Blind Eye Sports asked in the chat, what QB will sign with LSU this cycle?
That's why they paid Joe Sloan the money. I don't know the answer to that one. I like how they're doing the quarterbacks. I wrote about that today because it would seem like you could get trapped if you're, a college and Arch Manning's in your state. And it's like, we're going to roll. We're all in. We're all in. And however the chips fall, so that, that's how it'll go. And you can come up snake eyes there pretty easily. I think it's become very clear that LSU, even with Orgeron to this staff, was like, we know we're probably not getting him, so let's recruit him, but let's recruit everybody else too. And the same Eli Holstein. Look, Louisiana has 3 kids, Arch, Eli Holstein at Zachary, and then Rickie Collins at Woodlawn, who are ranked as top 12 quarterbacks nationally. Wow. So that at some point all 3 of those guys have landed an LSU offer, during high school, and the current staff is recruiting all 3 of them. So that you're probably going to come away with one of them. And they've suddenly, almost like with Tackett, gotten themselves back into the Eli Holstein picture. And it seems like Bama, if it's not Bama, would it be LSU there? Arch is obviously Texas, Bama, Georgia, schools he's talked up and is going to go visit. And Rickie Collins is committed to Purdue, but I think that's one where Oregon just offered him. LSU's heavy on him, so he'll have, bigger options down the line. I'd look out. I think what everyone's waiting on is outside the state. They went, if if you feel like at some point you can recruit all these guys heavily enough, and if things not go wrong, or if you don't get Dante Moore in Michigan, the number 2 quarterback in the country, or Jaden Rashada in California, who's like the number 4 quarterback in the country. If you don't get those guys, it's fine because you've been recruiting these 3 guys in state equally as hard. So we'll see. Rashada's visit's coming June 2nd or 3rd, so he'll be that first week of June. Dante Moore already visited. Rashada announces in June, so we'll know those answers sooner than later. And then I think if if Dante Moore goes to Notre Dame and Rashada ends up going elsewhere and not LSU, I think that you circle back and think, okay, it's going to be Holstein or Rickie Collins. It's my guess.
Jay Chillin asks, how about 4-star DB Christian Gray from Texas? How does LSU stand with him?
Gray. Well, and I guess Gray is from Missouri, and why I would point that out or make a point to correct that is that he played at DeSmet, or I guess that's how you say it, but for Robert Steeples, their current cornerbacks coach. So Steeples, who spent a year with the Vikings last year, this past football season, prior to that was the head coach at the high school where Christian Gray attends, where Mac Markway, LSU's tight end commitment, goes to high school. So where Mekhi Wingo, the Missouri D lineman that transferred in, where he went to high school. So, and they were a really good high school football team, and kind of Steeples was held in high regard as turning that program around. Point being, all these kids are close with him, and Gray is a cornerback, so he would be coached by Steeples. So I think that he would have gone to Notre Dame, and many people think Notre Dame has the lead, but I think it would have been a done deal Notre Dame no matter what, had all of a sudden his high school coach not been hired to be the cornerbacks coach at LSU. And now he's visited a couple times. He'll have another visit coming up over the summer. So they're squarely in that one. But I think Notre Dame's the big competition.
Blind Eye Sports also asks, what's the percentage Tackett Curtis signs with LSU?
Jordy?
It's going to be 100, boy.
No, man. No. You're not in the fan club if it ain't 100. I don't know. It's so – look, he hadn't visited LSU in a football capacity, he said, since like a camp in middle school. So if he's been to Ohio, he's been exploring his recruiting process and talking to all these coaches for 2 years now. And Even LSU, you're working with a whole new staff, and now they're trying to get in. So I'd say it's better than 0, which is what it was about a month ago, or a couple months ago. So
you're saying there's a chance?
You didn't.
That's all the Jordy Culotta fan club needs to hear.
Right? You're telling me there's a chance.
Shea said so.
That's right.
You didn't mention Dante Moore and the quarterbacks. How do they stand with him?
I think more is Notre Dame or LSU. And then I think with Rashada out in California, he's visited Ole Miss. LSU's about to get a visit, but A&M is lurking around for Dante Moore and Jaden Rashada, and both could get visits. I think a lot of people I talked to around the country, or even with kind of the current the fight going on or dialogue going on publicly with Jimbo and Saban and all that. I think Billy Lucci tweeted this recently. He's like, people are going to be mad when July rolls around and A&M's popping like 6 5-stars again.
I know.
And I agree with him. People are going to be
I
mad.
said the same thing.
And I think one of them will probably be a quarterback. So I don't know if it'll be Dante Moore, Jaden Rashada, or maybe it'll be some other guy that LSU's not after. But those guys are looking at A&M, and they hadn't picked a quarterback yet. And I think they're telling those guys, hey, someone's going to get the quarterback deal in the class, right? So I think those guys are kind of checking out what's good. I think Dante Moore had a good quote. This is going to be paraphrased because I don't remember what exactly he said, but he was like, I'm looking forward to checking out A&M and seeing how they put together that number 1 class.